Pittsburgh Steelers. What do we do in Pittsburgh here? The rumors coming out of Pittsburgh is that they have their starting quarterback on the roster.
On the roster?
I was on Pittsburgh radio last week with our friends, Pony and Muller. And Pony presented, he said, I'm going to give you a list of quarterback options. And in my head, I'm thinking, all right, you got 2 or 3 options here. He listed 7 scenarios.
7.
All in a row.
Okay.
I don't remember all of them.
Right.
But it was some combination of it's Kenny Pickett plus Mason Rudolph, it's Ryan Tannehill in free agency, to pair with Arthur Smith again.
Right.
It's trade for Justin Fields.
Yeah.
It's draft a Bo Nix or a Michael Penix at 20 in the first round. It's some combination. There were 2 others. Call Big Ben from retirement. That wasn't one of them. Those are the options Pittsburgh's looking at.
They were rumored to be a potential trade partner for Russell Wilson.
Russell Wilson, Mac Jones, any quarterback who's not going to be with their 2023 team has been rumored to go to Pittsburgh. And it's like, man, I like playing GM. GM's fun, man. But I don't want to be the GM when these are my options. Man, this is challenging, figuring out the quarterback position. I think I landed on the unknown box of Michael Penix and Bo Nix, right? Draft somebody. The same way I said, sure, draft Kenny Pickett 2 years ago. But if 2 years from now, he's not the guy, move on and draft the next guy. So we're here. Maybe Kenny Pickett's not the guy, draft the next one. So Sam, what the heck are we going to do at quarterback here in Pittsburgh?
Yeah. I don't love any of those options, to be honest.
Take a different job.
Take a different job.
GM. Hold out for a different job.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I guess given I don't know that you can love anything that we've seen from Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph. They already cut Trubisky. I feel like anything else is probably the way to go.
The Mason Rudolph thing is fascinating because the offense for 2 games did look much better, and they scored 30.
Yeah,
but like
Rudolph,
if you're objectively watching the game,
yeah,
you can't say, well, Mason Rudolph's 5-yard slant that George Pickens took 86 yards to the house, it was all Mason.
Rudolph provided the context that the Giants got with Tyrod Taylor and Cutlets last year, right? It's like neither of those guys is good. It's just that they showed you how bad it was with the first guy in charge. You know what I mean?
At the same time,
yeah.
But at the same time, the previous year, the Giants had a good offense with Daniel Jones.
Right. But my point being, sometimes you get players like that where they come in and, yeah, it's better than what's there before, but it's not the answer. It's just like it just shows you how bad it's gotten with what was starting before that. So, you don't come out of that Giant season and go, oh, maybe Tyrod Taylor's the answer. Maybe we can put him back in and that we can go, like, he showed some good stuff. No, you're like, we know Tyrod Taylor's a backup. We just got to see how bad it had gotten with Daniel Jones a starter. The same thing I think is true in Pittsburgh. You're not saying that Mason Rudolph is the future. You're just like, this shows you how bad Kenny Pickett was playing because Rudolph's able to come in as like QB3 and still make it look better. That means we need a new quarterback, even though the guy's a first-round pick.
The one thing that keeps me somewhat intrigued by Kenny Pickett is the first year outside of Matt Canada's system, right? Even when there's a mid-season offensive coordinator change, we talked about it at the time, like it's still the same system, it's the same install. You don't have the whole offseason. And for all the jokes around Arthur Smith and doesn't use his playmakers and whatever he did in Atlanta, he did get the Atlanta job because of what he did rejuvenating Ryan Tannehill in his career, which is why Ryan Tannehill's name's being brought up.
Yeah. But Tannehill's, he's done at this point.
My concern with Tannehill is the physical decline as he gets into his mid to late 30s. That used to be a time where quarterbacks declined before Tom Brady and Drew Brees and Aaron Rodgers started defying those things. But you're actually seeing that from Tannehill. So that would be my concern rolling with him.
An Arthur Smith offense does become very intriguing with either Russell Wilson or Justin Fields running it, to be honest. Now, it's not great. You're not excited by any combination of options available to Pittsburgh at quarterback. But if you were presenting that abstract to me, Russell Wilson in an Arthur Smith offense with those Pittsburgh playmakers and or Justin Fields in an Arthur Smith offense with those Pittsburgh playmakers, I'm at least willing to hear more, I'm intrigued. in a way that I'm not when the answer is Mason Rudolph or Kenny Pickett.
The Fields, I will remain intrigued by Fields, and this is just the nature of the NFL, right? Like the Bears are going to move on from Justin Fields. Teams are going to the Titans they moved on from Ryan Tannehill, but that's someone else's treasure because their quarterback situation is that bad. I'm intrigued enough by Fields, but maybe not for like a second round pick or anything like that. I mean, if it's like, hey, I'll throw you a third or a fourth to have a chance to see if Fields in year 4 with a new voice, with a new system, and building around his legs and hoping that he develops as a passer. If that's the investment, I'm willing to take maybe that option if I'm Pittsburgh. I don't want to give up anything beyond that from a draft capital standpoint, though.
No, probably not. I mean, it does depend on what the price tag is, but at least conceptually, Justin Fields within that offense, I think, makes a lot of sense. Like a lot of play action, a lot of movement for the quarterback, relying on his athleticism, and giving him big play potential without having him be, the most efficient passer in the world.
Is that where we're going to go?
I mean, like I said, I'm intrigued. You sell me that, I'm willing to listen.
Steelers pick at 20, and the thing we'll mention for the next 2 months, picking a center at 20. Sounds really intriguing for Pittsburgh. But you got to make sure that you feel good about the quarterback ahead of that before you get there. I think the thing that makes Pittsburgh difficult to peg here, we thought that their offseason was fantastic last year, right? I do think the on paper players that they've added, the way they drafted last year, the people that they brought in, there's a lot of good. There's a lot to like there. But either the quarterback's not very good in Pickett, or Matt Canada was not very good, and you didn't get to see any of that. So there is this world where Arthur Smith comes in and uses the George Pickens and Deontay Johnsons and Darnell Washingtons and Pat Freiermuths of the world, and then the two-headed monster of Najee Harris and Jalen Warren, which they had spurts. Like Warren was outstanding for much of the season. Najee had spurts. Like there's a world where this whole thing works, and it's just making sure that the offensive line is tidied up a little bit. I think left tackle needs to be in play in the first round. I don't know if those guys come off the board a little bit too high, but there should be an option at tackle again. They drafted Broderick Jones last year, had him at right tackle, whether they flip him or whatever they want to do. But Dan Moore probably needs to get replaced at left tackle. Then that offensive line looks pretty solid across the board. But I think first round, if you're rolling with Pickett or you're trading for Fields, offensive line in the first round I think is very much in play for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I mean they don't have an overabundance of draft picks. They've got basically their regular draft, except instead of a fifth, they have another fourth, I think. But,
Rams comp pick at 120.
Yeah, so it means that you're gonna, if you're taking Fields, it's probably costing you the second round pick, right? That's 51 overall. You're left with a first rounder, 20 overall. You're left with a third rounder, and then some day 3 picks. But I wouldn't want to do that, but I wouldn't hate it, Like, you could sell me on that. It's costing you your second round pick. You still have your first. You still have everything else to play with. And now Justin Fields is your quarterback in this offense. I could work with that.
So if we're working under the premise, I brought up my NBA analogy to Rick again, who doesn't completely get it. The idea of continuing to take shots at quarterbacks, right? You're basically maneuvering your entire roster to get top high-end starting quarterback.
Right.
If we're playing that game, the maneuver is either mystery box of draft pick or year 4 of Fields, year 4 of Justin Fields. There's been some promise there. There's something to build around. If we're playing that game, it's just take a shot. We get 1 year of Fields. If it works, maybe he's our guy.
At least 1 year.
Right. At least. But if it doesn't work, we go and we maneuver to the next guy. Right. I'm okay with that if we're playing that game. But you could also make that statement, okay, we've got 1 year to see Kenny Pickett outside of Matt Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Like those are the options for new stuff.
Yeah.
I don't hate the Fields thing. I don't want to give up pick 52.
I don't want to do it, but I think I would for that cost. Like Fields is still something of an unknown, but he's one of the most athletic quarterbacks in the NFL. He's got a big arm. He can make enough plays. I mean, Mike Tomlin is a guy that makes miracles happen with vastly inferior quarterback situations than whatever you can build with Justin Fields as your quarterback. You get one more year of him for cheap. You, at the same time as you're doing this, you pick up the fifth-year option. You get one more year for modest money, and then you figure out what to do at the end of that. I think given the receivers that they have, given the playmakers generally that they have, you can build a pretty good offense around Justin Fields, which, by the way, probably offsets some of the weaknesses in the offensive line as well, helping you along the way.
I wouldn't go that far. Maybe in the run game it does.
Yeah.
In pass pro, it exposes them.
Nah.
In pass pro, it does. Fields exposes the offensive line in pass protection because he does hold the ball a lot longer. You need the one thing the Steelers' offensive line has looked a little bit better. The reason why we've had to explain to fans why Dan Moore had like a grade of 3 but didn't give up any pressures is because the ball was coming out so quickly in Pittsburgh the last couple of years in this system. That would be the one concern. You would have to tidy up the left tackle, center. You'd have to tidy up the pass protection, I think, for Fields. He would help them in the run game. I agree. Mm-hmm. Defensively, there's a lot to like about Pittsburgh. TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith coming off the edge. Highsmith had a 90 grade last year to go with a Watt in his elite grade last year. Joey Porter Jr. looked like a hit with that first pick of the second round. I think there's definitely still depth to add at corner. That's another one that could be in play at 20.
Yeah.
The Kool-Aids and Wiggins and some of those guys that, again, I don't know where they end up landing in the NFL, but there's 4 or 5 potential first-round corners that I think are all in play. So I think we're looking at offensive line or corner for Pittsburgh in the first round once they figure out that quarterback situation.
Yeah, corner I think is one of the most popular kind of first-round draft picks for them. But they're like, if you make that deal, if you send a second-round pick to get Justin Fields, they're a massive trade-down candidate as well. Like
have to be. I mean, if I'm sitting there at 20, I would do whatever I could to even get out of the first round. Don't care. Get into that. The problem with this draft, as Jim Nagy was highlighting, you don't want to go too far. So it's not load up on day 3 picks. It's like,
but if you could flip pick number 20 for, let's say, 2 picks of like 50 and 51 to replace the 50 that you need to get rid of.
I think the 30 to 80 range for Pittsburgh would be good to try to make up for anything that they lose in a trade there. Mm-hmm. All right, did we fix the Steelers?
Sure.
I mean, we gave them options. We gave them some stuff to do. We're not going to fix everybody. It's just, that's why we said LOL JK when we did this before.